It's all set up. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Shall we wait another moment or two for others to sign on?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 more minutes. We were expecting, I think Robin is going to be joining us.
Yes.
Hey, did I torch you?
Yeah, I'm on here, but I'm muted, so I think I'm going to move her to the other.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't know.
Anybody else?
Let's give it 2 more minutes and then we'll welcome everybody.
Mhm.
And Jeffrey, did you, I don't know if we sent a link to Robin actually.
Robin.
Sue, do you know if Robin got the link to today's meeting?
Yes, she did.
Great. Okay, good.
Thank you. Hi, Kevin.
I think everybody starts out as muted. I saw your mouth moving, Kevin, but no sound was.
I was just saying hi to everybody. Greetings.
Hi, Demi. Okay, I think maybe in a minute.
Yeah,
we'll
give it 1 more minute, then we're going to start.
Be right back.
Sure. All right, it's 6:05, so why don't we get started? Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. It's not too late to say Happy New Year on the 11th, is it?
I don't think so.
So
Definitely not.
what's the consensus? It's not too late.
Definitely not.
Okay, good. So, well, it is really good to be together again and, together as a team. And personally, I'm glad that we're meeting via Zoom because it is so cold out. It is so cold out tonight. So happy to be safe and warm at home right now while we're still able to work closely together. So I think that's terrific. Want to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded tonight. Everybody comes on muted. We want to preserve the audio quality of the meeting. So we're actually asking everybody to stay muted for most of the meeting. But if you have a question, if you want to speak, this is a really interactive forum. So you can certainly unmute and then just press mute to continue. As well, anytime during the meeting, you can add questions and comments to the chat. We're going to monitor that and do our best to address the questions and comments that are coming in. So these are mostly familiar faces, but by way of introduction, I'm June Wallach, and Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Kaur.
So Karen and I have recently been appointed to by the town board to co-chair the Sustainability Collaborative. Mitch is here, and we want to thank Mitch tremendously for his role in leading and chairing the collaborative going back to 2015. And Mitch is going to continue to be an active appointed member of the collaborative. And we are really grateful for the opportunity to continue working with him. So thank you, Mitch. And we're really glad to be virtually sitting shoulder to shoulder with you, and not losing any momentum for all the hard work that everybody has put into the collaborative. We also want to thank our board liaison, Jeffrey King, for joining us this evening. And we will hope to welcome Robin Nishinsky, who was elected to the town board last November. And am I stealing your thunder, Jeffrey, if we talk about Robin's role?
No, not at all. Please go right ahead, June.
Okay, so Robin will now become the Sustainability Collaborative's liaison to the town board. So she'll be taking over for Jeffrey. And on behalf of the Sustainability Collaborative, Jeffrey, we really want to express our true appreciation for your service to the community and your commitment to working together. And we're looking forward to welcoming Robin. Hopefully she'll have a chance to jump on the call tonight.
Yeah, I see that she's, June, I see that she just asked for the link. I just sent her the link. So hopefully she'll be able to join us soon.
Okay, thank you. Good. Okay, so good. We're gonna welcome her soon. So actually, Jeff is going to start us off sharing a few thoughts. Do you want to wait, Jeff, for Robin to sign on? Oh, here she is.
Okay, here she is. Yeah.
A moment.
Oh, terrific. Perfect timing.
Hi, Robin. Just so you know, Robin, we're all starting off as muted, but you can unmute, which you'll want to do to ask questions, to add to the conversation. We're all going to be muted. We're going to make sure we're muted for most of the session, except for when you want to speak up and add to the dialogue. But we are thanking Jeffrey for taking a moment to share a few thoughts and comments with us.
Well, let me begin by welcoming everyone. I know it's a little chilly outside, but it's kind of nice every now and then to Zoom from the warmth of our homes. Hopefully they are sustainable, and I don't see too many fireplaces going. Neither do I have one, but hopefully later this evening. But I do want to say that it's been a pleasure working with everyone on the board. As I was explaining to June and Karen last night, that I sincerely believe that Sustainability Collaborative Committee and all the volunteers that make up the Sustainability Collaborative, that everyone goes above and beyond, your civic duty, for lack of a better term, and that the initiatives and the practices and the procedures that you have proposed to the board over the last 5 years, and the actions, I'm sorry, and everything that's actually been implemented. I mean, I just want to applaud everyone. I know it's tireless. It's not always acknowledged, but we at the board do acknowledge it. And I've enjoyed my time. And what we try to do on the board is to rotate the liaisons. And it just seemed an ideal time with Nancy retiring, Jane coming in, Robin joining the town board. a reshuffling. And that's what we try to do. And this was rather lengthy, but I think every 3 to 4 years, we try to rotate, play musical chairs, so to speak, with all the duties. So I am, yes, moving on, but not moving far. So just another Zoom call away. But I want to introduce Robin, who I know is eager to participate and learn. And it is a bit of a learning curve, because I say that only because there's so many different aspects to the Sustainability Collaborative. And there's so many bright minds, everything from our tree canopy to obviously the waste management in terms of food scraps to the solar to energy recovery. So there is a lot, and it is daunting, but I know that everyone on the board will welcome Robin with open arms and give her the time to get up to speed. So with that, I want to say thank you. I've enjoyed my time. And Robin, I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you. I don't have any prepared remarks. I just want to say that I'm ready to learn. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here. I'm probably just going to listen tonight because I know that I really don't have much to add at this point. But I'm really looking forward to this position. And thank you, Jeff. And I know you've done a great job, and it's going to be hard to fill your footsteps, but I'll do my best, and I'm happy to be here. And I have heard what a truly committed, hardworking group you are. I've looked at some of your recent messages and accomplishments, and it is very impressive. And I think you have done and are doing really great things for our town. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your encouragement and support, Jeff and Robin. We're really looking forward to teaming with you in the months ahead. For anyone who is joining us for the first time this evening, we're really glad that you're here tonight. Ray, thank you for joining us, and Robin as well. And there may be some others who we're going to be welcoming tonight. For the sake of background, the Sustainability Collaborative is a group of volunteers made up of town board appointed members and other active members of our community. This committee was created to advise the town on environmental issues with the objective of improving quality of life, becoming more sustainable, and becoming more resilient as a community. So what does that mean on a practical basis? We work towards protecting the natural environment, reducing flooding, reducing energy use, which presumably leads towards saving some money, reducing our carbon footprint, reducing noise, calming traffic, improving water quality, and improving our ability to bounce back quicker and stronger from extreme weather events, which is so relatable to all of us now. This year in particular, we are going to be putting everything we do into context of climate action as we develop our recommendations to the town board for a response to their sign off on the climate emergency declaration. So with that in mind, first, let's begin our meeting with approval of the minutes, which Sue has distributed as an attachment to the Zoom link that she forwarded us. Has everybody or anybody had a chance to read through the minutes? And is there a motion to approve?
Or any questions or comments also for that?
So Mitch, Elizabeth, Kevin.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, second?
I second the approval.
Great. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay? Great. Great. So thank you, everybody. All right. So moving on, Karen, do you want to review tonight's agenda, sort of give us a heads up as to what to expect this evening?
Sure. Should I just see whether I can share the screen on the proposed agenda? Can you all see that?
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Okay, just, pretty simple. So just wanted to, today we're going to be framing our discussion around 3 topics, really under number 3, A, B, and C. The first is the climate smart communities recertification. I know that it was discussed at our last collaborative meeting, but we wanted to go a little bit more into it since it was recently submitted, thanks to Denise Dunn and Kat Warwick. It was submitted on January 7th. So June will be introducing a bit more about climate smart communities, why it's important to the town, what it has involved, what the whole recertification process involved, what we can expect next now that it has been submitted, and how it relates to the next topic of our climate emergency response.
Yeah.
So for the second topic on the climate emergency response or action plan that you see on the agenda, I will be introducing that and, just reminding people what this is, since we have a few new people, and of course, Robin as well, why it's important and what is our plan of action on this in the next few months. And then our third topic on the agenda, 3C, is community outreach and engagement. June will be covering this, and basically, June will be talking about our plans for community outreach and education and the communication plan undergirding this and how it will relate to the climate emergency. So we hope to have an active discussion on each of these topics, and we'd really like to hear your thoughts, questions, ideas on this. And we have also left, I think we're doing really well on time. So I think we'll really be able to open up for other issues that anybody else wants to bring up as well.
Yeah.
After this.
So on the subject of our climate smart communities recertification, neither Kat nor Denise were able to join in the meeting tonight. They have forwarded some thoughts and comments, but for the most part, if you've been to collaborative meetings, you're aware that Denise Dunn and Kat Warwick, our supervisor's intern, spearheaded the somewhat arduous process of applying for recertification of the town's status as a climate smart community. So many thanks to Denise and Kat for their dedication, which consumed more than 100 hours of their time from October through December. So it was really a gargantuan effort. And essentially, for those who aren't familiar, we'll just quickly touch on what climate smart communities certification involves and why it's of value to the town. So Climate Smart Communities program is sponsored by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. It's focused on communities taking action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve climate resilience. So bronze certification, which is what we have and we're recertifying now for it, requires that we take enough action, not intent, not just in the planning phase, but enough action to achieve through their point system 120 points with specific requirements by particular categories. Kat and Denise had to document over our achievements, and they actually documented up to 180 points or a little above. That's still in the bronze category. And we will hear in approximately a month about our confirmation for recertification. It looks really good. And we've had as last month and previously as our guest or 2 months ago, Eleanor Peck, who is a member of the Climate Smart Communities program from the Hudson Valley. And she's been a wonderful representative and consultant for us. And it's looking good. And the next level up, by the way, is silver certification at 300 points. So it's estimated that it may take us 2 more years to accomplish enough actions to get to silver certification. But why does it matter? So the benefits of climate smart community certification to our town are that it gives us access to grant funding. As a climate smart community, there are millions of dollars of matching grants that we can compete for. It's not automatic. We need to apply and compete for it. And accomplishment of those actions, sets us up for climate smart community certification again, but also potentially overlaps with the recommendations that we may make as response to the climate emergency declaration. So essentially, they're providing funding for us to achieve climate objectives we're already committed to, and objectives that advance our certification, as well as support the work that we're doing in response to the emergency declaration. So it's really a tremendously rewarding program and project. There's also, by the way, a great deal of support and training available through this program to help us implement and operationalize high impact actions. So that's to save energy, improve efficiencies, reduce emissions. So they are truly set up to help us with our success. So it's a wonderful program. And, thanks again to Denise and Kat for applying for the recertification. Michelle, did you want to add to that?
Did our certification that we originally had, did that lapse? And that's why this had to be done? Or is this a recertification that we're expecting? Because we were way ahead of other communities as far as what our actions were. And then all of a sudden, it seems as though we stepped back.
Yeah, there's no resting on our laurels. We do have to apply for recertification every certain number of years. And they have the option to add additional requirements. So it's not a static, it's not static.
So the projects that we've done in the past, do they qualify as part of this certification?
It is, when I look at the application or what's been filed, there are some things that have been already approved, but there's a number of initiatives here that are put before the committee again for evaluation. Is there anything you want to add, Mitch? Because I know you were part of this process as well. But we do have to go for recertification again.
So when you have the certification renewed, that's for all the projects that we've done, or are we still outstanding projects?
There are some that we already have approval for. But again, because some of the criteria changes and they have the opportunity to add new categories and new actions. And yeah, it's not a slam dunk necessarily. We also have to qualify across a variety of categories. So the total of points, 120 or 180, they have to fall into certain slots. And
so I guess what I'm asking is there work on this list that the committee needs to tackle in order to have certification for all the projects that have been done?
Yeah, from what Denise and Kat have shared with us, it seems that there's always new work for the recertification, but it appears from what, and this is where unfortunately Kat and Denise were not able to connect in. There are some, it looks as if there's some standing items that are approved already, but a lot that still need documentation.
So there are some that we still need to work on for projects that are already complete.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I guess what I'm
we-
saying is when this started, Sue, and maybe you can chime in here. It seemed that we had projects we're way ahead of the curve on the number of projects that we had done from other communities. And so if this is about recertifying those projects, then I think we need to know what it is we have to put together. I mean, we have finished. We were surprised that we were at a bronze level, not higher than that, from the number of projects that we had done. So if there's work that this committee needs to do in order to have the certification done for those projects, somebody should share that with the committee in order that we
Yes,
help document them.
yes.
You know, I
and
mean, we've
so-
all been involved in these projects for years, and
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
of a sudden it seemed as though we were needing to do something else to add to them.
Yes, so the answer is yes, there's more work to do. I mean, this has been filed already. The application has been made as of last week. Thank you, Sue, for getting that in on time before the deadline. But yeah, there's continually more work that we have to do. Silver is, I think, 300 points. We're at about 180, but even at 180, it only checks the boxes of bronze, which is still valuable.
Of course, I'm just wondering what might be missing from this list that we need to help fill in.
So we have the list. It's on the website, but we can send you information about what Denise and Kat worked on, what's been approved, and what areas we haven't tapped into yet. To the extent possible, we're going to overlap this with the work for the response to the emergency declaration.
Sure.
So these don't have to be all separate.
No, I know those projects will all be included, but
Yes.
I think I feel like I missed a chapter somewhere of how we fell from something that was complete to something that had to be recertified.
It's not,
So
Michelle,
I
if
don't
can
know
just-
what those projects are.
Michelle, just to explain, and Mitch can speak to this better. It's not that we fell. We did what we had to do in 2016.
Yep.
But much of what was done has to be recertified. So if you're doing, let's say, I'm just throwing this out there, let's say you're doing energy benchmarking and you're showing how you're saving energy in 2016. Well, 5 years later, that's not good enough. You have to show, well, what have you done for me lately, right?
Fine.
So what Kat and Denise did is they looked at everything that the collaborative and through Nancy's help that the town has done in this time period. And they documented it. But, you know, doing all the great things the collaborative has done is wonderful. You have to document everything. And we didn't always have, you know, the exact proof or the exact data, but they found a lot of proof and a lot of data. And so we're going to get the bronze, but to get up to silver is a lot more work.
I know, but whatever it is, I mean, I remember being online with something with Nancy and the people who were doing the certification. And I guess the question is how is that information shared between what's expected of the collaborative and what the collaborative has to do, so that, you know, they're not just chasing information, they're chasing directed information towards what it is we have to provide.
Right, and we can provide that. I mean, we can share that with you. We can send an email. Sue, if lots of people want copies of the action checklist, you know, you can send it to everybody who attends tonight's meeting. It's online at the Climate Smart Communities website, but we can send you ours, as well as Denise went through the trouble of color coding this plan. So we actually can see at a glance what's been approved and what is.
So maybe we can meet with her, or she can answer some of these questions when we're together, because I mean, it becomes the groundwork for how we put together the projects, right? Yeah. As we do the projects, we need to be able to tick off the things that have to be submitted, so that she doesn't have to go back and search for them.
Agree. It's a really important context for everything we do.
If I can interject a thought here. So basically, I mean, what I was also going to propose as an idea, you know, we've been talking about like how we're going to think about these projects, in this case, all the things that maybe the town's going to do going forward through the lens of sustainability. Well, let's also now think about how we do things and operate as a committee in this case. Let's maybe also add in this particular sort of framework of the different types of activities that you can get points and credit for getting future climate smart communities certification levels. Let's think about it then through that framework. Let's always have that in the center of our minds, so that then as we're formulating projects and maybe trying to look for those areas that we've barely touched or we haven't done things for, let's make sure then we're planning somehow around that in this case. So that's on foremost and in our thinking in terms of how we're planning as a committee going forward. That's what I would propose.
Okay. Great idea. So you meaning that we sort of identify what are the actions needed to get to the silver level, right? And
Or to complete the projects, Karen. We need to complete the projects that we've worked on so that they answer that chapter.
Right. There's also, and maybe Mitch, you can chime in on this. I thought a thought that though I had heard in the past was that with other efforts that we were working on and projects maybe that were still ongoing, that we weren't far away necessarily from the silver level. Did I remember that correctly? I thought that we had said that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that we're maybe close to that level.
Well, we can get everybody, a copy of this document that identifies all of the actions and all the points associated with them. And everybody can be working from the same page as we go forward for 2022. Virtually everything we do, we can determine whether it links directly to a climate smart certification action.
The list that you were asking me for of all the projects that we had worked on, is that still sort of a framework for what we need to complete?
I would say no to that. I think it's really great for us to have, and we can update, but to have the list of accomplishments each year, because a lot is done. I mean, that was one of Denise's comments. We all know that a lot, as a committee, we do a lot. Karen and I helped put together the communications, outreach, and education element, and we put together just a PowerPoint deck to show photographs and screenshots of so many of the accomplishments we've had in terms of sharing and activities. Even Denise was impressed. We had way more than we needed, but even to provide a minimal amount, it was a tremendous amount of time and energy. It was a great reflection of our community, of this committee. So yeah, it's great to document that. But that was only worth actually a few points in the total scheme of things. Karen, do you remember that when we found out how few points actually were associated with all that work? It was like, that's all we get. So I think
it would be interesting.
Yeah, I think everybody, we'll see if we can get this out to everybody. Okay.
I just want to throw in one little thing. And you kind of really touched on this. I think the ROI, the return on investment, is really important to think about what projects we should focus on, right? Like if there's a project that gets you a few points, but it's a huge effort, don't bother, right? Otherwise, but if there's a project with a lot of points and not a lot of effort, like let's go after those. So I think we need to maybe estimate for our town what, the cost or investment is for each of them. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out.
Karen is going to take us through the first exercise we have planned for the climate emergency action plan, and that includes a ranking of resources, of impact, of timing. So I think all of these layers are going to overlap very nicely, and that's a really great point, that return on investment is got to be top of mind. It's not just for climate smart certification, to the extent that whatever we're going to do anyway, whatever recommendations we make and document and show validation for to our town board, that they should all line up, really.
So we're just not doing this for fun.
That's one way of thinking about it.
Well,
I don't know. Yeah,
It would be good for fun to be part of it.
it is fun to be part of it. So why don't we, Karen, why don't you move on, unless, does anybody have any questions or additional great comments? Let's move on to the next piece in our agenda, which is really the central element, I think, that we're going to be talking about tonight, the Climate Emergency Action Plan.
Okay, yeah. So just as a reminder, especially for those who are, joining us for the first time, just a reminder that on November 17th, our town board adopted a climate emergency declaration. And so we joined over 2,000 jurisdictions in 37 countries who had adopted similar declarations, similar climate emergency declarations. And this basically officially recognizes, this means that the town of Mamaroneck recognizes the local adverse impacts of climate change on our community, and it commits the town to take actions to respond to the mandates of New York State's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. Just as a reminder that that requires New York State to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 40% by 2030, no less than 85% by 2050 from 1990 levels, and achieve statewide carbon neutrality by 2050. And in the town's climate emergency declaration, the Sustainability Collaborative was directed to develop the town's response to the climate emergency. So this is where our collaborative comes in, that in this declaration, climate emergency declaration that the town adopted, the collaborative has been directed to help the town develop the response to climate emergency, and to present this to the town board, to present the draft response by the end of September 2022. So by September this year. So this is a big, as you can see, this is, this is a big part of the work that we've cut out for ourselves this year, right? So this was adopted. And I think it would be helpful then at this point to go over our proposed climate emergency response plan for the next several months, how we're going to come up with this draft response. So I just want to share screen at this point, and just, let's see, okay, right here. Can you, okay, can you see this? Can you see the emergency response plan, the table? Okay, so basically this shows, this table that you see shows a proposed phased approach to the climate emergency response. In phase one, which is in the first row, we are evaluating and prioritizing the actions, the proposed actions from the draft sustainability plan, which the collaborative had developed back in 2014, thanks to the original collaborative members. So we feel that, this draft sustainability plan that was developed by the collaborative is a valuable starting point with relevant ideas and concepts in there. So we don't have to start from square one. Let's start from this document because there are many proposed actions which are very relevant to climate action.
May I add too, Karen, for anybody who hasn't seen the plan, it is listed under the resources on the Sustainability Collaborative page of the town website. So you just go to the collab page. You'll look down towards below the the bottom half of the page as a list of resources. And by title, it says a draft plan for sustainability, a resilient and sustainable, or sustainable and resilient Mamaroneck. And so it's certainly a piece that everybody can take a look at, and you'll see how comprehensive it is in terms of suggestions and recommendations. It really covers more than top of mind understanding of the issues.
But that's also,
Yes,
let's
and so it,
make sure then, as part of this process, this is also then going back to my comment, let's make sure we can overlay then the climate smart communities framework into this as well to
Yep.
see if anything from the 2014 plan plus anything that we see as part of then the climate smart communities framework, that then we should then also prioritize as part of this plan in this case that we're going to develop. It can be the projects that are actually going to go and help us get points in the future as well. So I think, again, I just will reemphasize that point there.
Yeah,
Pretty different though, Nick. The 2014 plan, the guidelines for what is expected to happen going forward are much narrower than where we have to go with the plan right now. And there is no addressing carbon. There is, it's very different. So the categories may be similar, but it really, I think, needs to be revisited. And I'm not sure, it's one of the things I was asking for the climate smart communities is, I'm not sure that there is much overlap in what we're expected to do for the climate emergency plan.
well, let's take that, let's take another perspective on that, Michelle, because it may be that a plan that was written in 2014 and then delivered to the board in 2015 isn't necessarily using the language of climate action, but it involves activities and recommendations that can be translated into impact on climate action. So it may be positioning and sort of phrasing and wording, or maybe it just needs some boost, and maybe we essentially need to complete the thought.
All right, let's visit it.
Yeah,
I'm happy to keep an open mind, but as I read through some of the things that I thought were really progressive in 2014, I said, well, we're going to increase the tree canopy by 20% over the next 10 years, right? I mean, there are some things that are just really, we need, there's a lot of activity that has to happen in order to meet the goals of now.
Right.
Yes, and so that's part of the
Karen's going to talk about that.
purpose, right, of this is that we are trying to revisit the draft from 2014 based on the current challenges that we have and our objectives of trying to meet the mandate of New York State, right, the climate protection.
Sure.
So now we have to revisit with a new eye based on the new mandates that we have. So now we're targeting for this phase one. I'm going to go into more details in a little bit, but I just want to touch on the other phases. But just let you know that phase one, basically the target completion date is end of this month, end of January. Okay, then phase two would be, the focus of phase two is basically supplementing, once you've prioritized the both actions from the sustainability plan, like 3 to 5 proposed actions for each group under which I will go into in detail afterwards. What we want to do in phase two is basically, supplement these prioritized actions by making sure gathering additional input to fully inform these recommendations. So what that means, maybe gathering case studies that provide more detailed interview town staff to talk about feasibility of the proposed actions identified. Gather information from state level resources like the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, or even other nonprofit organizations that may have resource people that can help direct us to sort of make sure that whatever proposed actions we have identified can be are actionable, can be put into action, can be implemented. And at the same time, hopefully we can also identify a potential source of funding at this phase. But we're basically phase two, we're we're targeting to get this done by end of February. So I mean, we are, it's pretty aggressive timeline, but and then phase 3 basically is, taking the prioritized list that we have from phase 1 and then supplementing it with the inputs that we gather from subject matter experts and other people that we talk to about the proposed actions, and we develop an outline on the response. And subsequently, phases 4 and 5 are basically, adding the meat to the proposal, the proposed actions, providing the background, the rationale, and all of this basically with targeting to finish definitely before September. The deadline is September 2022, as I mentioned. But I just want to now go more directly into more detail about phase 1, which is basically what we're going to be doing now until the end of this month. Basically, phase 1 is the work that begins right now, and we are in the process of forming 3 work groups comprising 3 to 6 collaborative volunteers who have demonstrated interest and involvement in these 3 goal categories, which are taken from the draft sustainability plan, and which also relate very closely to the collaborative priorities that we identified for 2021. So the 3 groups would be organized around these 3 goals. So first is quality of life, which basically relates to strengthening community health in 2021 collaborative priorities, and basically covers things like landscape, healthy yards, complete streets, and electric vehicles. Now, electric vehicles, of course, you will be thinking, why would it be here and not resilience? It's, it actually can go in both, but it was identified in quality of life in the draft sustainability plan because of its effect, its impact in reducing air pollution. So it's considered a way of advancing quality of life, right, with less pollution. Now, the second group would be focused on resilience, what's called resilience, which basically relates to the renewable and reliable energy in our priority, the collaborative priority. And it covers energy, including backup generators, green infrastructure like permeable paving, things that help to absorb heavy rain, right, to mitigate flooding, trees. Of course, we have a tree team, buildings, and ways to reduce emissions, and then emergency preparedness. So this is a large topic, obviously, quite wide ranging. And these. Mm-hmm.
May I jump in on your list?
Sure.
Some things we didn't speak to here, but which the town board has already weighed in on. So for example, the New York stretch code is relevant to the topic of buildings. And also, Karen, you mentioned overlap. So electric vehicles is in quality of life, as you say, with reference to air quality. But I think people like Mark and Nick and Mitch and I'm thinking Mark Carell and maybe Mark Manley as well. Electric vehicles in the context of energy is also using electric vehicles as essentially a battery to power the home when there's outages. So, and I see Michelle wisely shaking her head. So it's like, however we spin some of these concepts, they have multiple relevance. But for now, we're just, breaking up and evaluating these things. So for those who look at their electric cars or hybrid vehicles as a battery for their home, then, it's another option.
Right.
Can I give
Sure,
it?
and just,
Am I
is
being,
there a question?
heard at all?
Yes, is that George? Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, on the air quality, gas-powered equipment is not just for healthy yards, it's for air quality.
Yep.
And I think we ought to put that in. That's an important aspect.
Yes, and it is, you're right. It's worth adding. We'll put that down specifically so it's not overlooked. When we talk about gas powered or avoiding gas powered equipment for healthy yards, it's for air quality is a key reason for doing it. So we can add air quality to that list.
Good point.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
And it's
And just, yeah.
not just the gas, but the blowers, the strong blowers blow up all sorts of stuff that we then go and breathe in.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a major missing part, especially now where we're getting some results, I think, finally in electric lawnmowers.
Yes, definitely. Knowing that there's more research in terms of the impacts of all the small particulate matter, right?
Yeah.
On respiratory health. Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks, George, for bringing that up. And just moving on, the third work group would be working on sustainability, which relates to the collaborative priorities in terms of minimizing waste, largely. So that's why you see the waste, the food scrap recycling, reduction of single-use plastic, but also, covers household carbon footprint. In this case, proposed actions from the draft sustainability plan, which relates to reducing carbon footprint. So participants in each group will be provided a matrix of proposed actions from the draft sustainability plan, along with criteria for prioritizing and ranking their top 3 to 5 recommended actions. And so they'll be going through this exercise, and we've already started reaching out to people. As I said, we're reaching out to collaborative members who have been involved, who have demonstrated interest and been involved in these different areas like healthy yards or food scrap recycling, who have shown interest in these different areas, and we've started to ask volunteers to see if they could help to be part of this process, which we would like to get started as soon as possible, because we would like to get this exercise done and have these proposed actions prioritized by the end of this month, by January 25th. And then we'd like to present at our next collaborative meeting, we'd like to talk over the proposed, the top recommendations from each group under these 3 categories.
Karen, can I go back to something Michelle said earlier that I think is really relevant? Using the draft sustainability and resilience plan is a jumping off point. We're not saying that that's the definitive guide to sustainability and climate action. It's a really great jumping off point. It's a lot of thinking and a lot of work was put into that document. So as Karen said, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not starting from scratch. We're not sitting in front of a blank page, but that's a basis for conversation and discussion among the 3 groups who are going to be examining it. And we understand and recognize that what may emerge from those team discussions is ideas for other actions to evaluate. But it is a great jumping off point. It's not necessarily the definitive plan for today, but it should be great as a starting point for further discussion. Does that make sense to you, Michelle, as a starting point? Okay. I know you're very familiar with that plan, but you're also on mute, so we can't hear you. Okay, thank you.
And if there's anybody, who has a particular who would like to get involved in this exercise, who who really feels very strongly about about joining in this exercise of prioritizing, going through the draft sustainability plan and prioritizing it in the next few weeks, please do reach out to June and myself. And I think you have our email addresses, right? Or, everybody has Sue's email address, and you can always let Sue know, and she will forward it to June and I.
Karen, before we moved
Yeah.
on, I wanted to nitpick one thing, sorry, with regards to what you were talking about with the phases in this case of the plan. I almost kind of feel like phase one is more just, I think, the prioritization of the different ideas in this case, but you had to evaluate also in there too. But I feel like the evaluation phase is coming with the second phase, right? Because I feel like that's when we're beginning to talk to stakeholders about determining the feasibility really of those different areas that we've prioritized, which, yeah, some might be feasible, some might be more aspirational. And we are not going to figure that out until we've begun to talk to relevant stakeholders to really figure out, can these action ideas actually take off, and can we actually do something with them? And even two, can they be funded? So I was just going to maybe suggest maybe rewording phase one, just to maybe say it's only just a prioritization phase in this case of how we're determining what ones we want to work on and start to evaluate further. And then phase two is talking more about an evaluation of the feasibility of these particular ideas. So just a little bit of nuance on the wording. That's all. I just wanted.
Yeah, thank you. So the evaluation of the feasibility, right? Because the evaluation that I mentioned in the phase one is really, it's based on criteria which are qualitative. That basically, the criteria that we are recommending that the proposed actions be considered with our climate actions as one criteria, climate impact. So an assessment of with each proposed action, what is the climate impact that you think this action may have. And next would be the implementation, timing of implementation. How is this proposed action something that can be implemented in the short term, like 1 to 2 years, or the medium term, 2 to 5 years, or long term, beyond 5 years. And the third criterion was, besides climate impact, was the resource requirements. How much, are there funding requirements for this, staffing requirements to put this proposed action into reality? So that was going to be part of the first evaluation, so it is more of an internal kind of evaluation because there are so many proposals in the draft sustainability plan. So we need to narrow down to something that's more manageable, right? That's why the top 5 recommendations of each area. And then from that, but you're right, Nicholas, that then the next level, is really having that going to the deeper level, talking to staff members who will be operationalizing it to discuss what is feasible, and what are the next steps for those recommended actions.
Right. But I don't think then as part of a matrix, we should be talking or even thinking about resources at this point until we've had conversations with other people, right? Because how do we know necessarily what is actually out there and what is needed in this case, unless we talk to the parties who actually maybe help us with carrying it out, right? So how can we use that as part of an initial evaluation of the prioritization?
I think that when you see the worksheet that it'll make sense, but we can, you'll get a copy of it, and I think you're making, good points, and we can take that into consideration. But let's get you a copy of the worksheet as soon as we can and see if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that.
I think you'll get them within a couple of days at most. So, okay. Thank you for raising those good points.
Yeah. Are there any other questions of thoughts, questions of clarification or ideas?
Yeah, I have a question. Very good presentation. This plan, this climate emergency plan, is this just for the town of Mamaroneck? And would it make sense if we combined with Larchmont, Village of Mamaroneck, with other entities who probably have the same concerns we have, town of Mamaroneck has?
You know, I attended the LEC meeting today with Lisa McDonald and Sasha Nar, and they have, they're interested in what we're doing. They haven't signed a similar declaration. I think we're all on parallel paths. They're not at the same timeline that we are. But there's a lot of cooperation and, you know, so. But everybody, each municipality is on a different timeline and has a variety of priorities that may or may not align.
So it may slow us down to work with others.
I don't know if they slow us down. There's a lot of, you know, similar committees of a lot of bright, dedicated people.
What about the Village of Marina? Are they on a plan?
Yeah, Mark, I don't think they have something equivalent to the emergency declaration. Do they?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't believe they do yet. Although I will mention that other climate smart communities have pledges that sort of mirror our emergency declaration. They're not quite to the extent and level of detail that we go. And Elizabeth Radow, you know, Beth Radow brought a tremendous amount of intelligence and guidance to the process for arriving at our declaration. Every community will take a slightly different approach.
I just had a question on process. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Michelle, you go.
Yes, Judy.
Because I'm looking at the dates and January 25th can come up pretty quick for people. So I just want to make sure on process, we have the 2014 sustainability plan and the things that we're going to kind of try to calibrate or overlay are the recertification tasks and this worksheet that you guys have worked up.
You won't be, let's just say recertification tasks isn't really part of this exercise.
Right.
We'll overlay everything. But what you're going to see is we're going to break up into groups. There'll be a leader for each of the three groups, the quality of life group, the resilience group, and the sustainability group. They're going to, one reason we kept the groups kind of small, as little as few as 3 and maybe as many as 5 or so. We're going to assemble, set up Zoom or follow-up meetings. Everybody's going to come together, zip through those actions and criteria. It's all laid out already. It's all laid out. So it'll be worksheets. You sit there, we go through these line by line and say, what do you think? Is this relevant? Is this dead? Is this something that's, worth it? And it's just talk through it and quickly rate it. It's not highly, for better and for worse, it's not a highly scientific process. It's a lot of good minds coming together. And I think it's going to jump off the page and say, yeah, we actually made progress on that, or nah, that doesn't seem realistic anymore, or relevant. You'll be able to go through page by page, go through the criteria. There's only 3 of them. And presumably, that can take an hour or an hour and a half. And then I think it's done. You submit your feedback and then we synthesize everything.
June and Karen?
Yes, Mike?
Yeah. Do you think to expedite things and also allow a large number of people from the collaborative who have overlapping interests is to make a monkey survey, etc.? If you're rating things and you have a list, why not just survey as a first step? And if 3 items fall out that no one thinks they're worthwhile, then why spend time discussing them if you've had 20 people vote already?
Yeah, deciding whether they're worthwhile is the responsibility of the team. And I think you're going to see that teams are put in place based on subject matter expertise and experience. So, for example,
I understand that. What I'm suggesting, though, is that with technology today, because of deadlines and what's going on, you can do a survey at your schedule, whereas a Zoom is a scheduled event, as we know. I'm just suggesting it as a possibility. to do a survey as a preliminary step for the committee?
It wasn't designed to be done individually, but it's actually very, I think, a very efficient and smart idea for future. This is sort of based on groupthink. But I think we can consider that for future exercises and refinements.
Thank you.
Thanks for suggesting that.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, I mean, back to, Mark Carell's, question about whether it could be something, that we consider in partnership with the villages. I mean, I think like one area, sanitation, waste, we are already obviously a joint sanitation. So in a sense, we do have to consider Village of Larchmont, right? Because we are in a joint sanitation arrangement. So in that case, but as to the other points, I guess that's maybe at the phase 2, where, I mean, you really have to look at the details, what the proposal is, whether it makes sense to be trying to do something in partnership with the villages, right? But at the end of the day, we are bringing this up. This is something that our town would have to agree to want to put into action. So the recommendations are things that the town can follow up with, right? We're trying to identify things that are actionable by the town of Mamaroneck. So if there is an existing partnership on something, maybe that makes sense, right? So it depends on, I mean, if there's an existing partnership such as, with Village of Larchmont for sanitation, then it may make sense to do this in partnership. But so it depends on what are the existing.
Isn't this something that is a response to the town's adoption of the Climate Emergency Action Plan? So it would seem like the response is to the town. And while you could look at what the villages are doing, this is really a town initiative.
It is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I just also look at it from how much logistically is going to be involved with having to get 2 other towns, sustainability committees involved in agreeing to this. And then as well as 2 separately elected boards are going to have to also sign off probably on this as well. It's going to be a big undertaking to involve the villages. It's good, in terms of the spirit of doing that and doing it collaboratively. I just know we're going to have a lot of work, I think, just within the town just to do this first. And I just think eventually, yes, if there is maybe room for overlap, I definitely agree that that's maybe ways to partner with them on certain things. I think that's great. But to then try and do this all, I think, as the whole tri-municipal area, it's going to be a big undertaking.
Just to shed a little bit of light on this, after this report was written in 2014 is when the gesture was made to both of the villages to join with the town in what some of the projects were. And it's when the collaborative actually grew to include members from both of the villages. And we worked as a tri-municipal project, or with all 3 communities. And some, people, there was some separating from that. And this sort of just goes to show that we're sort of right back where we were in 2014. There was, I think, I was not in favor of joining the 3 municipalities in the beginning because we were each so different. And yet I think that there was a huge advantage to having members of both of the other communities join with us and having the initiatives that we were discussing include a greater area. And, our kids are all in school, in high school together, and that it was more of a community. So I can see why, yes, it's more cumbersome to include those communities. And we certainly did a large, not a gala, but a large symposium on environmental issues going back 3 or 4 years ago, where each of the communities were involved, and even with Healthy Yards, where all 3 communities began that program together. And Larchmont certainly stepped out ahead in the lawn blowers, and the village of Mamaroneck has just acquired funding from Climate Smart Communities for some of the things on their list. And I think that the sharing of the ideas and the gestures was is something that I hope won't be abandoned forever, because I think that this emergency resolution is something that really affects all 3 communities on the water.
Yeah, but for the purpose of this project and this deliverable and what we need to do for the board, as Robin says, this is specifically for the town of Mamaroneck. So we still need to get through this exercise, and we need to put together a response. And so, the idea of improvement comes in. We're committed to this. We still need to do it. And as Robin says, it's for our town board. So we're gonna go forward with this. But that doesn't preclude doing anything together for all kinds of initiatives and actions and activities. So there's those collaborations will still go on, but this response to the climate emergency declaration is on path to get to the board in the months ahead.
I mean, case in point, we also did, some very successful collaborations with, say, like the village of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont with like Grid Rewards last year and the community solar, the outreach campaign, right? So it's not to say we haven't done successful collaborations that could have benefited this whole tri-municipal area.
Yeah, we went to their Earth Day celebration at Constitution Park and brought in some new Healthy Yards members and whatnot. So we'll keep doing those things. Okay. But again, this particular deliverable is for our board, the town. All right. So, Karen, what else do we want to talk about the climate emergency action plan? We'll be into the leaders for each of the 3 groups. We'll be in touch with members in the next few days to start putting together group meetings.
Yes.
Setting dates.
That's right. So the next step would be the group leaders. So that just to let people know, the group leaders are for quality of life. June will be leading that group. For resilience, Mitch Green will be leading that group, and I will be leading the sustainability group. So those are the so 3 of us, Mitch, June, and I will be reaching out. We've already started reaching out to people. And we're gonna, in the next day or 2, we'd like to set up the meetings, Zoom meetings, so that we can, and we, of course, when we get in touch with you, we'll send you, make sure that you have that draft sustainability plan, that you have the matrix. I think it's a good idea for you to have that Denise's certification, that worksheet that basically highlights what has, the different points and actions that still are needed in order for us to get to the silver.
Yeah.
But you have that as starting point, and then we'll be scheduling a meeting with the different group members so that we can get that done. Probably the next week, meeting for next week. Okay.
I think when you get all the materials, it'll be clearer.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we, I think should we move on to the next topic of community outreach and engagement? June, what do you think?
Does anybody have any further comments or questions about the emergency action plan? I think when you have all the documents in front of you, it's going to be, you're going to say, oh, this is a no-brainer, and this won't take that long. well, that remains to be seen. I mean, but I think you will. I think you will feel that way, and we may, if we need to fine tune based on comments. And Nick, thanks for your sharp eye on some of these things too. We'll adjust. You know, it's nothing's cast in stone yet, but I think it's a more simple process when you sit through it. I think you're going to see it. It's not hard.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, just quickly, could you just explain to me how you're going to propose to put the teams together? I mean, that should be done quickly, right? There's 3 teams. I mean, how soon will that be done? Because that has to be done first and foremost, right?
Exactly, yes. So we are reaching out, we're starting to reach out to people who, who have been working on, on food scrap recycling, so we're choosing people based on what they've been involved in and seem to have, based on what they've indicated their interests and what they've indicated their interests are, and based on their past involvement.
Right. So hopefully people will respond promptly so that you can put this together by the end of the week.
Yeah, no, of course.
Right?
Yeah, those initial conversations are going pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? If not, then let's just go on to the next one, the last topic on community outreach and engagement.
Right. One reason community outreach and engagement is noted here as on the agenda is one of the first items that came up as a resolution with the climate emergency declaration document is that community engagement and education is one of the first things that's mentioned. And it also, to your point, Nick, is one of the areas of climate smart certification. We know it's important, but in our opinion, it's not necessarily an environmental action in itself. We see that as kind of a horizontal, it's a function that really impacts everything. We recognize that it's a commitment that we need to make, and it's something that as a collaborative we've been doing all along. There's this multitude of activities that the collaborative organizes throughout the year. We have plenty of achievements to show here, and then we typically do some kind of a promotional or communications plan for each initiative. As we go forward for 2022, we're going to be taking a more coordinated and sort of cohesive, maybe an integrated approach to communications. So rather than having lots of little stories throughout the year based on lots of activities, we're going to try to be thinking about this with kind of an umbrella approach, that we're going to be translating lots of what we do into climate action. And as we say, everybody plays a role in climate action. Residents have things that they can do, and we'll be informing about that. Our local government has actions to take. And so really everything we do, from compost give back to healthy yards to repair cafe to continuing education classes. So Mark Carell had to drop off, but he and Nick presented a continuing a program, a class with the Center for Continuing Education. It had really great registration. Lots of people came, dozens of attendees came. And we're in the process actually of doing our next program for continuing for the Continuing Ed Center. By the way, if you guys haven't experienced that, or you haven't seen the promotions for that, that is what the Center for Continuing Ed is calling a community class. You do not pay. It's free. Everybody's welcome. They want to support a community effort towards sustainability. So, that's another, but we're going to be framing this with a little bit more of a consistent, integrated message. And so how are we going to do that? We are going to make, first of all, communications is a starting point. It's not, oh, okay, we have this idea, let's now think about a plan. Communications is a great starting point. It's not an afterthought. It's really, it's the way we jump off to identify who's our audience, who are we reaching out to, what are we going to say, what's going to motivate everybody, what are the kind of key messages and key words that are going to sound relatable, that are going to be very benefit oriented, that are going to provide a sense of value and betterment, for everybody who's who we're reaching out to. So we're going to accomplish this by one, we'll create a communications strategy around some core ideas and core speaking points related to climate action. We do not have that strategy in place. We have elements of it in place, but we will be refining that and hopefully have more to share at our February meeting.
And hopefully we can get people. I mean, this is where also we're calling for help.
Yeah.
Definitely, this is where another area where we would love other new volunteers to be involved in helping us develop this.
So we're going to build a communication strategy that encompasses everything we do and really starts to bring everything together. So they're not discrete promotions and discrete messages, that they all build up to a key idea. We are going to provide all collaborative members and volunteers with a worksheet that would be part of the planning process for everything we do. So for Repair Cafe, for Healthy Yards, for food scrap recycling, Love Your Food, whatever, it's going to give us the kind of the operating plan. It's going to be a set of questions that help us refine and bring clarity to identifying our audiences, supporting our pitches with proof points, creating key messages, that vocabulary. And interestingly, this is not a stretch. It's kind of more of a discipline because this resides in our own minds. It's that we don't often sit down together and say, how should we speak about this? So it's really not new, but it establishes a format to build on what may be top of mind for us, but we don't necessarily actively or as precisely as we could communicate effectively. So now when we have good ideas about new things to do, they're not going to be promoted as, a million points of light. They're going to be more consistent and hopefully reinforce a key message. And we may form a collaborative subcommittee of people who are experienced in doing this, in writing and distilling information, as well as just everybody who has energy and passion for what we do for our community. You do not have to be in advertising and marketing to do this successfully. We just need a little bit of an organizational framework. And also going back to a comment that we started this meeting with, which is a sense of fun. We devote our time to this because we enjoy it and we believe so much in why this is important. So yeah, we may form a subcommittee, a communications subcommittee of people who rally around and can just come up with some values statements and ideas and keywords that we can relate to. If it's not fun for people, they're not going to buy in, they're not going to engage. So we don't have to be super serious. Climate crisis is serious, but we can approach it as we just enjoy life and, our remarkable community. I basically think that essentially, we can this can be a collective superpower in a sense of our collaborative. It just takes a little bit of training, a little reminders, and hopefully in meetings to come, we have had so much to share with each other about all the work and effort that we all do. But maybe we can make some of our upcoming meetings a little bit of training, a little bit of group think, which does happen kind of organically. But, maybe we take 20 minutes for an upcoming meeting and say, what is this communications worksheet? How do I make sense of it? And how can I make it a little bit more magical and fun? Let's just enjoy it. If it's not fun, why do it? And especially where we're getting people to change habits or adopt new ideas. it can't be a chore. We have enough chores to do.
On communications, I think one area that we've missed is that of clean air, which goes back to my hobby horse, of course. But it's really important, and we really haven't communicated that we're looking to clean up the air. And I think we've started doing some stuff on that when we're working on electric cars and electric blowers, and there's going to be electric mowers, and it's going to make a big difference. And I think we ought to communicate that.
Good point. And Karen, when Karen was talking about areas that kind of overlap, we think about trees as flood mitigation, but my gosh, we couldn't have clean air without trees. And that doesn't mean it can make up for having, I-95 run through our community, but where would we be without trees? So they address, that's an item that spills into, it's certainly quality of life. It's certainly infrastructure. So we'll be fluid about that, but yeah, clean air, we need to say that.
Just as a overarching comment that I have in this case is that I wholeheartedly agree with needing proper communication with how you effectively communicate about the initiatives that you do on the environment. And then also too, as kind of creating that call to action to people to activate them to actually do something in their community. Because one of the biggest longstanding problems that has always been with the sustainability movement is this dichotomy between the expert versus the non-expert, right? The idea here is that the people who feel like they're not experts in sustainability, then they look up to these people who are the experts on the pedestal and they say, well, I can't get into that. I can't get to that where you guys are in this case because I don't have the expertise. The idea here is breaking down that wall through this kind of communication and marketing kind of initiative.
Yeah.
Is to take down this barrier between the expert versus non-expert and say, no, you don't have to be an expert in this. You can also do this too, if provided the proper tools and resources that are available to you to go take action on certain things. And so I think that's going to be a key thing that we're going to have to try and solve. I'm not saying that we're going to, but if we can go a long way through an effective marketing and community outreach plan to help with starting to get that barrier taken down, you're going to make a lot of progress.
There is a communications sheet that, Mitch, this will be familiar to you. And Michelle, this may ring a bell for you too. I found it, I don't have it on my table right now, but it was really, what can residents do? It actually was titled along those lines, and some of the recommended actions may seem a little dated to us now, but yeah, we need to say, here's what you can do. And I think it's really a pat on the back because lots of people are already doing this. So it makes it's got to be easy. It's got to be rewarding one way or another. It's got to be enjoyable or when we talk about healthy yards, beautiful, but it's got to be easy. And we're not asking our community to do anything backbreaking. But if we help them better understand how it's rewarding for them, how simple it is. And there is no effort that's too small. We talk about this in Healthy Yards all the time. You don't have to have acres of land to help improve the ecosystem. Every effort is significant. And I think we can communicate that. So I appreciate that input. We have to, it's not pedagogical, we don't have to be all the experts. It's really, how do we live it? And think about, how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people are dropping off their food scraps at Maxwell Avenue, which to me, that was so counterintuitive. I mean, I signed up, but it's like, we're going out of our way. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the time. Not everybody has a car. Let's just say for a lot of younger people, they don't aspire to have a car. Lots of people live in Larchmont and Mamaroneck because it's a walkable community. So I think we need to be flexible to how population trends are changing, who's living here. Not everybody is a traditional family who lives here. But you do not have to be an expert at anything to make a valuable contribution along the lines of sustainability or climate action. I mean, there are certainly experts who attend these meetings, and there are experts both in terms of understanding. Mitch, George, Michelle, I mean, all of us bring something to the table because we have interests. Every single person whose face is on this screen tonight is exceptional and unique in what they bring and the talents they have, both towards their commitment towards sustainability, but also skills. I mean, Laura Workin is here. Laura, you're so talented from design, and you're so generous with your creative thinking. I mean, everybody here represents, something exceptional. But we didn't all start as experts. I don't consider myself an expert, but I look to everybody as bringing something really unique and valuable. So.
Thank you. Can I interject for 1 second? I want to I'm so excited that you're talking about this. You know that this is definitely a passion of mine. And you said something earlier that I think is really just an important point to make. You said it's not a side, to do community outreach is not a side project or a tangent or like an additional thing. It's really helping everything become more efficient, because if there's templates, even you mentioned doing PowerPoints, if there's some sort of template for how PowerPoints should look or bullet points that people can pull from, then it's saving time and energy. And we're not like reinventing the wheel every time a volunteer has to do something or give a presentation, or, we're all tapping into the same resources. So almost like a Dropbox with the bullet points about each committee. And I do think that there should be some sort of look and feel for the Sustainability Collab, just because there is for some of these individual programs, like Love Your Food. I mean, we talked about this before, but there is for Love Your Food, and there was the sticker for the compost program. So just even, it can be simple, but just an overarching umbrella,
Yeah.
I would love to help with this. So, but I do think that over time, it really will save people time and energy, and just people won't have to duplicate work.
Spoken like a true professional that you are. But I will just say, I think I've spoken on this before. I don't think that every individual activity should be uniquely branded. I think what you're saying is, yeah, we develop some resources that we can tap into quickly. Everybody, we always are inclined to want a logo for something. And I think from the point of view of branding and marketing, that's not where we want to be. Actually, we're not branding the collaborative, and we're not Love Your Food is, I think, exceptional. But for the most part, we are the town of Mamaroneck. We're not promoting the collaborative, we're promoting essentially resources for residents that are available to us because we have a town board who's covering this, who cares about it, who's committed to the best interests of residents and businesses that reside here. So we want to put together toolkits so it saves time. So when somebody has a new idea, we can run with it, which is a really good point, Laura. But we don't want to create various identities. The identity is the town of Mamaroneck. It's not even the Sustainability Collaborative. So maybe we use colors and images that work with the town's branding.
I mean, that's even easier. Yeah, that's basically like the town's branding with a little tagline, Sustainability Collaborative, but just so that when communications come from this group,
yeah, like the color palette, which I know you're so aware of, but and those stickers, by the way, which were designed and we were able to place on our cars and garbage, garbage cans and whatnot to show our support for food scrap recycling. But we can maybe take the town's branding, the colors, fonts, whatever, and we're not doing a whole brand identity for this, but we can, as a touch point, say, do we need to do blue? Do we need to do gold? Can we actually make things a little bit more maybe fun and animated in their appearance? We don't want to be super serious. Yeah, Robin.
I just wanted to add that after some fits and starts, the comprehensive plan is going to be going forward this year.
Yes.
And part of that may be a new look at the branding of the town. And so, we can kind of coordinate in some ways.
That's great.
Certainly sustainability efforts are going to be part also of, the plan for the town looking into the future, of course.
Yeah.
So that's just something to think about when you're thinking about branding.
Thank you. Complete. Yeah. The comprehensive plan is such a big asset.
I will say just one thing to the shout out to Laura. Those stickers. I mean, I still take pictures when I see it on people's car. I have a whole gallery, and I think it did start a lot of conversations in my neighborhood because they saw me putting it on my car and they saw me putting it on my recycling bin. And they were like, well, oh, what is that? I was like, oh, you don't know about it? And it really is a very good, I think it's a fantastic design. It's very clear. You know exactly what you're talking about. So to the point where we don't want to brand everything, but for the important things, I think it is important to have something because it does start conversations and it does help you to educate people. So, and it looks great. So I've said that to you before, but a shout out for that.
Thank you.
And
I
by
can't
the
take
way-
credit for the idea. I can only take credit for the look and feel, the look of it, but it was a
I don't
great
think
idea.
any of us could have executed what you did. None of us would have come close to that.
Yeah. Right.
And by the way, I don't know whether others know that, thanks to Laura as well. I mean, she did the We Compost stickers for Town of Mamaroneck, but she also did use a similar design, but did it for Scarsdale as well, right? Using different color palettes. So
yeah, 2 other towns asked for it.
okay,
So
yeah, what others? Yeah, so
it
update us,
exists in
Laura,
other
because-
town colors, which was kind of fun. Yeah.
So which of the towns, Scarsdale, and what was the other town? Village of
Maybe-
Mamaroneck.
Oh yes, yeah. So there's like
Village of Mamaroneck, yeah.
there is a blue one somewhere, blue and gold.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. Other topics?
Yes.
Well, June, what about, sorry, you remember about the new channels for outreach?
Yeah, so I mean, as part of
You wanna
the
touch a bit on that?
brainstorming, as part of the brainstorming and planning, Karen's talking about new channels. So we are exploring, because we still want to reach out through local media. We're not really doing much with social media, although Sue does a really beautiful job of keeping the town environment Facebook page going. That really has a lot of gems in there, but we've started to branch out. So one example is the continuing ed education program that there are several contributors to. We're looking at other options. So for example, I had a discussion with Dina Schumacher at LMC about maybe we put together a series of public service announcements, PSAs, just not 20 or 30-minute videos. And I see, so I'm looking at Arlene, who put together such a huge effort in producing the B team video, but short, 60 seconds, a minute, that LMC can make available, and with television, with on their site. And there's all kinds of new ways, I'm sure with the group we have, much more imaginative ways of getting out there, because we're going to have increasingly sharp and compelling and convincing ideas to bring to our community for engagement and education. And we all need education. And it's also incumbent upon us to communicate with simplicity. There was this, it was all over, I saw this online the other day, and I don't know who gave a voice to it. I don't know. But it was, if you can't and I know this sounds a little sarcastic, it's not meant to be, but it's along the lines of, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it well enough. And we have to be super clear. Karen and I were talking today about Eliza used a term that ironically sort of kept bouncing back, this idea of the echo chamber. We speak among ourselves, and we have to turn outwardly and think about how do we most effectively speak about these ideas and concepts in ways other people who don't have the benefit of teaming with an Arlene or a Mark or a Michelle, it's sort of wind back the clock to when you didn't know that much, and that's who we want to convey these things to and get everybody excited about. So we have to be super simple in the way that we think and express these things.
June, can I just add one thing in this communication arena and going along with what everybody has said and the messaging and maybe even some branding, that being out in the community, I know it's labor intensive, but we have found that has gotten us a lot of recognition in some of the projects that I've been working on with other team members here. And it's kind of, in some ways it feels like, person to person explaining or showing or doing or offering to do is also hugely important, because people don't always have time to even read the communications, but once they've seen your sign and your logo, in the marketplace, wherever it happens to be, at the fair, at the festival, then they kind of notice it when they see it again. We've gotten excellent response from that as well.
There's no doubt that person to person is the most important, most compelling way to, and think about all the events that you've attended. And, if it weren't for people being out there, tabling and making direct connections, I feel like, Arlene, every time you come back from something that you've shown up in person, you come back with signatures of people who take the Healthy Yards Pledge. Every time you come back from one of those, it's amazing. And, Elizabeth, the whole pollinator pathways concept, which was maybe on the tips of the tongues of people who are already enthusiasts, people who don't manage gardens. Still, I hear talk about pollinator pathways so much. So true. We need to be out there, but we need to be out there with better crafted messages and just a few keywords, because the people representing us, the people sitting at tables at the farmers market or at Earth Day need to be, they don't often have time to think up and remember, oh, what is that program? What does it do? So we'll give people the words and everybody will have input. I agree with you. It's a really great point. I mean, you're very dynamic when you're out there. You're kind of low key, but also high impact, I think, when you have conversations with people. So that's a skill that we don't, we need to build. More of us need to be that way. Because you know what, if you're a shy person and don't feel as confident walking into an event where you don't know anybody or whatnot, it helps to have a few keywords to boost your confidence and to connect.
Any other questions or thoughts, comments on community outreach and engagement? I mean, one question I had actually for Robin, I'm glad you brought up the comprehensive plan, because I mean, there's a whole big piece on community outreach and engagement as part of the comprehensive plan, right? That was, I'm just wondering, I know, I read that the contract has been signed with the PACE law, land and use, right? To be helping facilitate the comprehensive plan. I'm just wondering, is there a timeline that has been, where are you at in terms of the comprehensive planning process?
It's really just starting. I mean, we had a prior group and it didn't really work out. It didn't really get off the ground. The organization that was hired originally to do it just, it was not an effective group. So I was actually on the original steering committee for the comprehensive plan. I think I will not be on the steering committee moving forward because now I'm on the town council. At the time, I was a member of the community on the steering committee. I think Jane Eny most likely will be the representative or the liaison from the town council. And the whole committee is going to be reconstituted. And, Jane just came in as the new town supervisor. So I know that she's dedicated to moving this forward and the group has been chosen, but it's really just getting off the ground.
Okay. Thank you, Robin.
But there's definitely a commitment to it. So it's happening.
Yeah.
Can we move to the next agenda item?
Yeah, sure. And it's, this is where it's open. It's an open discussion. Any questions that you would like, anything we haven't talked about that you would like discuss?
So there are several things that have been left over from, let's say, last year. And I'll start with an easy one. I wrote an email to Steve and to
Meredith
Robson with regard to compost day proposed for April 30th and have not heard back. And I understand, June, you may have communication, but this is something, COVID is something that we've dealt with before. And I understand that the town, specifically the Sanitation Commission, is having problems with COVID and staffing. So I don't know whether or not they're hesitant to answer or whether they will, but we need to have some sort of response in advance in order to get the communication out. I can send Robin a copy of what was sent. And again, it was under the prior administration. I sent it out before New Year's because of the change of staff was significant. Number two, related to the Sanitation Commission, as you know, Thanksgiving weekend, Maxwell was closed. Christmas weekend, Maxwell was closed. New Year's weekend, Maxwell was closed on Sunday. And Martin Luther King's Day, I've been informed, will also be closed, as well as a COVID day. So what's happening, and I'm getting feedback from those who do bring it down, is that their Saturday availability in the last month and a half has been extremely limited. I know that we can't do anything about it, but closing on Saturday, their busiest day, is something that needs to be looked at when you decide which day of the week to close to maybe to save staffing. I'm not sure if that's in the books, but it's something that I'm throwing out there to the town at this meeting, since we were discussing last year how to make it more convenient to drop off food scraps, and it was talked about tonight. Additionally, the third item I'd like to bring up is one that Mitch and Arlene, we've mentioned the tree canopy, we've mentioned the trees. Does anyone have an update as to whether or not the town in their, our tree code was given to the town, Ms. Robeson, and she gave it to three staff members to review. Has there been any feedback? I guess.
I can't speak to the tree canopy, just to speak to the sanitation department.
Okay.
They're really in a crisis mode right now. I believe there are 8 members of the sanitation department who are out sick. Someone passed away in the last week from the sanitation department.
What? Really?
They are in a very difficult place right now, and
Oh,
they're not responding to you is, it's nothing personal. So I think you have to just have a little bit of patience and keep trying. And they will, they'll get back on their feet, but they're really struggling right now. You can tell from the messages that have come out, in terms of garbage pickup and delivery. I mean, garbage pickup and recycling, days have been sort of, I mean, they're still recycling, but it's kind of been moved about, and that's all because of staffing shortages. So that's the reason. It's COVID related.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to hear about the passing away of the staff member, probably, I know. Mitch or Arlene, do you have any comments?
No, but they have been open though. And I dropped off my my compost on Saturday. So they were open.
This Saturday they were open, yes.
Yeah, so they were open. Yeah, I mean, I realize that it's been really difficult and it's crowded there, and it's.
I'm looking for your comments on trees.
Oh, mine?
Yeah, on our tree code and where we stand, waiting for the town to get back to us. Have you heard anything?
No.
Have you heard from Liz?
No, but we're probably going to have a phone conversation, I think tomorrow. She got back to me, so I have a list of questions to kind of ask her and see, kind of where we are. And if anybody has any questions that you would like me to bring up with her, please just email me.
Yeah.
And we'll try and get all of that in. I want to kind of pick her brain as much as I can, before.
I'm hoping to see her because I dropped her a note about a tree of ours that the town planted and has some very weird things growing on it. So we've been writing back and forth, and she said that she would come find out and come by.
And
So
advancing the tree code is one of those things that will have some new life breathed into it, because in fact, I just, everybody's going to weigh in on this, but it's one of the climate action initiatives that actually has the most traction. So much work's been put into that. Some research has been done, so it actually is very far along for relatively fast implementation. It's not just a standalone. Yes, it's still a holdover from last year, but I'm thinking it could be one of the crown jewels of what the town could consider for green infrastructure.
And other towns, I think I had mentioned this once before, but other towns are looking at what we're doing to kind of model theirs after ours. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And other places that I thought we were looking at what they were doing, but they were actually looking at what we were doing. So
that's great.
We can move this along, which would be nice, before spring comes anyhow.
Yeah.
Arlene, what are you having a Zoom conversation with
No,
with Liz tomorrow?
I think just a phone conversation.
Okay.
And I think tomorrow, she asked me about tomorrow, and then she didn't, I told her, okay, she didn't get back to me yet, but so we'll try and squeeze that in tomorrow afternoon.
what piece of this are you discussing with her?
Well, I want to find out a lot of, we had questions. We want to know, is there a list of where trees were planted? These were some of the things that we discussed in the tree meetings. Is there a list of where trees have been planted? Do we know how many permits were denied? Just so is there, who else?
So it's
Yeah,
so it's the same question. It's the same questions.
Yeah, it's the same, yes, but we haven't really asked specifically, so we've had those questions, but I want to see if she can at least give us a little bit of information, and also who's overseeing, because there's different people overseeing the trees, but you know, whose jurisdiction do certain things fall under? And other things, how we can help. I mean, how, because we made that whole map of where trees should go.
Right.
Are any new ones going in? Several were supposed to go in the fall and they're not. So, you know, and how can we help and how can we promote, you know, trees for our town also?
It has such huge potential.
Oh,
The tree
absolutely.
planting is huge potential. Robin,
Yeah.
just to shed a little light on this for you, there seems to be resistance to changing the code for the trees. This has been worked on for more than a year by a real diligent large committee. And so, as you can tell from Arlene, there's real stalemate in finding out what the problem is. And the trees provide the greatest sense of green infrastructure for the town. And there's just, I think it's a policy problem and it's a personnel problem. And, you know, there's lots of components of what can be holding it up, but they've really been ready to go for over a year now. And they've really written, you know, amazing stuff in order to try to make sense out of it. So it's not just something that's sort of flopping around. It's something where there's a lot of directed energy into this, and it's great that it will be picked up again in this emergency plan, because it's really one of our best hopes, and there's so much clear cutting that goes on in the community that this committee sort of came together around that to try and put a stop to that, or a moratorium on it until the board can really visit it.
The other thing I
fill you in.
Yeah, I know. I've heard a little bit about it when I was on the zoning board as well.
The other thing that I wanted to just mention, because I don't know if it went out to everybody on the collab, but Beth had done a phenomenal panel discussion presentation from, yes, because it went to you, Michelle, and then the rest, some of us.
I was there. I
Oh,
mean,
you were.
it happened, you know, 10 years ago, whatever, but it was amazing. And so it was filmed, and a lot of the information is still the same, but it speaks to how to care for your trees and what are some of the things that we just don't do well, and how to fix some of that. And so it's all filmed already.
Yeah, it was, and I think and what it also did was it gave value to the trees. I mean, a monetary.
It was all about the trees.
Yeah, but a monetary value to the trees, which is important. Of course, it's changed over the years. It's going to be a much higher value now, but you still get a sense of that. And I thought it was, and I thought that Beth's her introduction, and I had sent her an email, was like our white paper. Like, where was she?
It was great.
It was excellent. So
it was at the Emmeline. The place was packed, and it was just about trees. It went on for a couple of hours. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, the presenters were excellent. It was very good, and you know, a lot of chock full of information. So I thought that was really.
Well, was that ever shared to the collaborative? You know, that video link?
I don't think so. I recently said, you know, let's just check with LMC TV, see if they filmed it. She said that they did. She sent me a link, but this is something it could go on.
Could it go on the Facebook page?
It could go somewhere. I mean, it's
Yeah,
lengthy. I don't know about.
Well,
Beth had sent.
Here you are.
Karen, I
you
sent
are.
it to you. I sent it to you this morning. I sent it to you yesterday. There were two programs that we did.
Yes, you sent it yesterday.
Right. and it's on LMC TV's League of Women Voters page. I did a number of programs. One was on real estate development in a waterfront community, and we dealt with flooding. But this one, we had 4 speakers, Frank Budding, Rick Harper from Cornell Cooperative Extension, and he looked at the cost benefit analysis of trees, which is what Arlene was speaking to, which I think resonates with people because their home is a valuable asset. So when you can, look at the monetization of a tree and or how it devalues your house, how it can cool your house, reduce your electrical bills, et cetera. We could certainly share this, Karen. I would love people to watch this because we put a lot of work into it. And, ironically, the program went off a handful of days after we had a major flooding event in our community. People were rowing boats down Mamaroneck Avenue. So this is a chronic, obviously, issue in this community, and trees absorb water. I mean, we have, and these issues that we are dealing with right now, we covered the ground however many years ago, it's embarrassing to say, but I looked a little younger then, but the statistics is still, I think, largely relevant. And I think, I'd love it if you'd share it with people, or I can share it with people, or maybe Sue can share it with people. But, you've got the link, Karen, and June.
Yeah. Okay, so we can send them to Sue then, at least start by collaborate. Like,
of course, it's public and it's on LMC's website.
Or you could have a showing.
Well, if people are, that's fine. Or if people want to watch it, I think anyone who's on the tree committee, if you're wanting to make it, first of all, if we're looking at community outreach and public education, you could take a look at it, but we had experts. And so, we've got something that we can share in the community, albeit it's a little old, but I still think that there is information in there that is relevant today. And also the one, I haven't watched the one on real estate development in a waterfront community, but, flooding is obviously an issue, and we have different issues now. I don't think we did not address sea level rise at that time at that program. I did it in another program. But, there may be something in there, Arlene, when you're going to the board, where you already have done a brilliant job, but there may be some things in there that, that add to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was terrific.
I think you're terrific for taking the time to watch it. Thank you.
No, it was really excellent. And it was so relevant today. You would never know. You really wouldn't know that it was done, more than just, months ago. I thought it was excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to send it around to people, because I know even in my, things like my book club, this whole tearing down of trees is a huge issue for a lot of people who happen to live next door to an older house that's being torn down and basically being raised for a new property going up. So I would love to get a copy of it, just to send it to friends that I know have the same sensibility.
Let me just say, if you go on to LMC Media, when we get off here, they have a page for the League of Women Voters.
Okay.
And if you scroll down, there's something that will be climate change, storms, and the role of trees.
Okay.
Name of the that particular one.
Okay, thanks.
And then the other ones I did are the other one. They're all there, and they're sort of toward the bottom of the page.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I'll send that email to Sue so she can circulate it as well. I'm sure some people had to leave this meeting earlier as well, and I'm sure they will be interested. But anyway, I'm just sort of mindful of the time that it's now 8:05, and I'm that our meeting is supposed to end at 8 o'clock. I know everybody, we've had a great discussion. Really appreciate everybody chiming in and contributing to this. But want you to be able to go back to your families and other things that you plan to do for the evening as well. And really appreciate you taking the time to spend these 2 hours with us today. So want to thank you and let you know that and please, if there's any questions or any, anybody who has any interest in following up in any of the ideas that were mentioned, please do reach out to June and I or through Sue to let us know. But with regards to the climate emergency plan, we will be following up in the next day or two. So stay tuned on that. Okay.
Before we go, I think it'd be appropriate to give a shout out to Karen and to June and to Mitch. Karen and June, congratulations for taking over the job, and Mitch, I think did a terrific job for, I think it was 6 years.
Yes, since 2015. Thank you, Mitch. Yes, I mean, thank you for shepherding the climate declaration, climate emergency declaration, right? That's the big thing that we're doing, thanks to all of Mitch's leadership. And also, I think we forgot to mention Frank Owens, that we also want to thank Frank Owens, who's one of the original members as well, who has had to unfortunately step down because he's now got his hands full. He's taking care of his mom, and he needs to spend time with that. So we want to thank him for all of his valuable contributions too. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Good
Thank
night,
you,
and
Robin,
we'll be in touch
for
soon.
joining us.
Okay. And thank you, LNC. Thank you, Sean.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye-bye.